but that was a good question, Paul. Because you know, he was just talking about art and stuff and how he's drawing, and is it for the right reasons or wrong reasons? Is it for I don't know. I used to do a lot of art, and I would always want attention, and I always want praise, like everybody does. But then I would start to see that, you know, I'm only doing art because I don't even like doing this shit, you know, half the time. So I concentrated on doing it when it came naturally, when it wasn't like something that was pressured on me to do for unwholesome reasons. So now I found what I like to do. I like to paint trees, and I like to do it. It comes naturally, you know. I don't even post a lot of it. I don't even need the attention or anything. But if somebody's interested, I'll show them, you know, or talking about art or whatever. But yeah. So I just try to do what comes natural, you know. Hi, dudes.
Another unwholesome part, I find that when I do make something, then the criticism and the judgment. But I mean, every artist knows this. But you're just saying, like, it doesn't matter what thoughts come and go, and just do it, you know.
You're saying when you make something, I didn't catch the end part of that.
Well, then the judgment and the criticism and so on. But that's just, again, just some thoughts that are coming, I guess, that are coming and going.
Oh, you criticize your own art, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Very good at it.
Yeah. That's the nature of the beast, you know?
Yeah.
And some good artwork comes from being overcritical sometimes with your art. Some bad stuff too.
Yeah.
So it's a dealer's choice.
I used to have a mentor who used to say that there's a difference between judgment and evaluation, or there's a difference between what we call dukkha, dissatisfaction, and divine discontent. He would like to use divine, but divine discontentment, where you kind of know that progress is possible and so on and so forth. And I think you did say yesterday, or whenever that call was, that trying isn't terrible, you know. So
words are, you know, like I know that Dhammarato is very particular with words, and I think that's a great teaching, because basically you do need to be mindful of what you say and how you say it, you know. And I really thank Dhammarato for that. Where I differ from him, I'm more like, I've more fallen in the direction of Ajahn Sumedho, where words are important, they're guides, but they're not so important you need to watch every single one. And as long as you have an earnest, good intention, you can't really fuck up too much. You know what I mean? Like, what do you know? So yeah, we could say trying is good in this situation, bad in this situation. This word is better here, this word is better here, but in this situation, it's all semantics. Who knows, you know? I don't really think about it too much. Even when I do talks, sometimes I'll completely contradict myself, and I'm watching the video to make sure when I'm editing and stuff, not for these videos, but other videos, when I'm editing and stuff, I'm like, you totally contradicted yourself there. Oh, well, maybe my point wasn't that important. Maybe I was wrong. Oh, well,
yeah,
big deal.
maybe there's.
I could sit there and be like, oh, but what if that's unskillful and it doesn't help somebody, it doesn't hurt? Oh, well, you know, my intention's not to harm anybody. My intention's not to cause dukkha. My intention's to free us all from dukkha, help guide us all there. And that should be all of our intentions. You know, I would hope. But how you guys doing, man?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
Good. Dude, I fell asleep on that Discord the other day when you were talking. I had my headphones on. I was laying down with my son. I was so tired. Like, your voice was so peaceful, I just fell asleep.
Yeah, when I the Monday calls that I host, I put my 1-year-old to sleep right before the call, and I have to lay in bed with her and put myself into a drowsy state in order to get her to be drowsy and sleepy.
Same.
And then when she falls asleep and she's sort of snoring, then I pick her up and put her in the crib. But sometimes she puts her warm little hand on me and she puts me to sleep.
That's
So
wonderful.
So it was a challenge to make it to those calls on time because, you know, sometimes she also fights it. So that's why
I
I'm
hear
always
you.
about 15 minutes late.
Oh no, yeah, I hear you, man. Yeah, same exact situation. My son lulls me to sleep with his tiredness as well.
My other child, he's 3. He's always just been the best sleeper on the planet. Once he passes out, you could just pick his unconscious body up and throw it in the bed, and it won't wake up.
Yeah, yeah. Sleep is a weird thing, but it's pretty awesome.
Not that I would ever do that. It's just
No,
by way
word.
of illustration. Yeah.
Yeah. But so yeah, nobody's in charge here. We're just chilling. We're just hanging out. I'm just kind of hosting. So if anything's on anybody's mind, feel free to talk about it. Question, particularly Dhamma oriented stuff. Yeah, we're just chilling. So if you have something to say, don't be afraid. You do me a favor if you interrupt me, because I don't even particularly get anything out of talking nonstop. So feel free to interrupt me at any time, please.
I had one thing on my mind, just because Paul is here. And the Friday calls, I'm working, so I just listen in. And Paul, was it you, Paul, who came in and talked about Dark Night of the Soul? Was that you?
No, but I'm familiar with it. Thank you.
Okay. Someone with a similar voice. Like I said, I wasn't watching.
Okay.
So maybe it's not relevant then.
Well, it's a good topic. I mean, I enjoy that topic, you know.
Yeah, like I said, I had the call going, but I was only listening. So whoever asked about that said that they were going through a bit of a depression, sort of. And then they talked about the concept of a dark night of the soul in spiritual traditions, and Dhammarato responded. But what I was thinking about, because I've been through many cycles like that in my relationship to the Dhamma, and over time it's been clarified exactly what it is. Which is just when you understand the Four Noble Truths, you see there's this direct simultaneous correlation between craving and suffering, and it's almost mathematical, how precise that relationship is. And so, I mean, I believe the Buddha gave us dukkha as the phenomena to explore, so that we could follow that experience instead of a theory or a concept directly to its root, which is craving. So essentially, what I have found is that when we experience something as overwhelming as what people call the dark night of the soul, or even, well, I'll just stick with that. It's because the level of wanting something we don't have is so intense, and we're just not fully aware of it. Our craving, we can call it wanting what you don't have, wanting to get rid of what you don't like. But what happens on the spiritual path is the things that we end up wanting are sort of like concepts, mental phenomena, abstract ideas, in theological or in theological traditions. People want a direct relationship with God. In Advaita and things like that, people want this sense of union between the Atman and the Brahman. In Buddhism, we want this thing called Nibbana, or sometimes we want lesser things like stream entry or jhanas and things like that. And most often, like 90% of the time, we don't understand what these words mean, and we end up wanting something that's so abstract it has no objective or concrete meaning. And so we're stuck in this pit of extremely strong want with no way of satisfying it, not even knowing where to look, essentially. And so I think that's what elicits that experience that people call the dark night of the soul. You're just stuck wanting something you don't have and you can't even put your finger on what it is. Those were my thoughts on that when I was listening to that conversation.
Yeah, beautifully said. Anybody else have anything to add on the dark night of the soul or anything he said?
Yeah, I often find that I want something and then I get it and then it turns out not to be the thing that I wanted. And then I'm like, well, so now I can't trust what I want, because often when I get the things I want, those weren't the things I thought they would be, etc., etc. So now the whole process of wanting or any kind of motivation has become difficult, in the sense that, like, I don't. But like you said earlier, it's basically that constant. Now there's a lot of second guessing, but it's still guessing. Second guessing is still guessing, So it's like,
Yeah. It's like Dhammarato says, stop trying to get it right and just start getting it happily. It's not about gaining knowledge and getting it right. It's about just letting go and being light and breathing and relaxing and realizing everything's okay here and now. This past and this future, only the ego can travel to the past and the future. So that's why I think Buddhadasa Bhikkhu was really, and the Buddha was really big on, this ego is not permanent. It's like an illusion. Sure, there's a type of self who does stuff during our day or whatever, gets the things on times. But ultimately, if you look at it under a microscope, there's nothing there. And all that thing does is travel to the past and the future. But, you can go days. And that's what a lot of the Buddhists do. Some instructions that only monks will get sometimes is repeat the word Bhutto over and over. And that might be the only instruction they're ever given by their abbot or master or whatever. And they're okay with that. And they go a lifetime and they die with that. Can we be okay with that? Having just the thoughts of thoughts, feelings, and emotions that bring the peace when we're thinking like Bhutto, Bhutto, Bhutto. And like Dhammarato says, it's not the word really that matters. It's that we're relaxing. We're getting away from the monkey mind and we're just coming back home. And there's people with special needs or brain injuries that will go a whole lifetime without having any really amazing philosophical thoughts or thinking about things so deeply and then understanding them and having aha moments. They don't have any of that. And some of them live very peaceful lives, being born and dying, just like the plants and trees in nature. So this stuff, we give it this value, but it's all just anicca dukkha anatta if we hold on to it, Yeah.
For me, I guess I have something about the dark night of the soul to say. Yeah, there's the concept of it, and then there is those points that's like the bottom, or whatever you want to call it, like rock bottom, just intense suffering. And when I've been there, often it gets so intense that I get like focused on it, and the concentration can lead to some equanimity, and then I broke through, and it was intense suffering, but then it was like I was witnessing someone suffering, and then I just noticed a rising and passing away phenomena just coming and going. And I don't know if you want to call that the dark night of the soul. It felt like a dark night, but just the coming and going, and permanence was there, no self was there, and things got better.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man. Yeah, there's a reason that terminology, dark night of the soul, and the meanings behind it, there's a reason it's so popular, because it's a phenomenon that happens. Some might call it a bad day. Some might call it this like deep depression before some kind of spiritual awakening. Some might call it just natural or normal. But I think it resonates with people because I think psychologically, a dark night of a soul, in my opinion only, would be something that maybe some karma that happened in your life, some bad habit that you did that you feel guilty about, that you haven't quite acknowledged. And then you might get older in life and finally acknowledge, like, hey, man, that thing you did back then, that was not cool, dude. And this is only now at whatever, how old you are, that you admit it. And you're like, fuck yeah. And you come to terms with it. For me, that's what I would understand as a kind of a dark night of the soul. But it doesn't necessarily even have to be called a dark night of the soul. It could just be called an epiphany or something. And I can't tell you what level of value it has, because it's just another passing thought, feeling, and emotion. So in a way, it's just kind of, maybe it has some benefit for some people, maybe it doesn't for other people, you know. It is what it is.
It can be.
Hi, Alex. How's it going? Hi, Jonas.
I was gonna say though, it can be called a big pile of dukkha.
Yeah,
I see you, dukkha.
absolutely. Yeah, big pile of dukkha. And that's like we were talking about the other day. We were talking about rites, rituals, and superstitions and stuff. And you know, it goes back to that thing about almost like addiction. It's like, it's not the rites and rituals that are bad in themselves. And it's not even necessarily the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are bad in themselves. It's the addiction to it. It's the over clinging to it. It's the over grasping to it that causes this dissatisfaction. The thing is just a phenomenon that occurs and arises and falls away, like everything else in nature. But we cling on to it, and so cute. You got any questions, little Michael or Michaelette, whatever your name is? Michelle. Oh, so cute. But yeah, man. Yeah, see that little baby there, it doesn't have any thoughts, feelings, emotions that are so deep and philosophical and all this stuff. But they're very simple creatures. When they need something, they let you know by whining and complaining. It's nothing personal. It's just what they do. It's the mind. Like Ajahn Chah said, the mind is a hot iron ball. And you could try to control it, try to figure out a way to fix it. But it's just going to be a hot iron ball at the end of the day, no matter how you hold it. It's going to burn you. So it's better just to let it go, let it be. Let the mind do what the mind does. Don't get involved with it. Buddhadasa Bhikkhu said, be like a computer. You know, you go about your day, plant your rice, eat your rice, shit it out, do whatever, and then sleep and rinse and repeat. And all that drama, all that BS, all that stuff that makes us feel bad, it's not necessary. Completely unnecessary. Days will pass. I always say this, like, well, I've been saying it recently, but days will pass, months will pass, and you'll see I haven't been doing anything thought-wise, and everything's still fine. Everything's still operating automatically. Yeah. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to be okay with the way things are. You know, whether it's our body, whether it's our health, whether it's how much money we have, or dreams or aspirations or something. It's quite a lovely thing just to be like, it's good enough. It's okay. I don't gotta. Sure, maybe if I want to have a goal, there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't have to beat myself up over it. Everything's perfect just the way it is right now.
Coming back to being content with ease rather than being like, oh, I need to find this thing. I need to have this epiphany, that epiphany, you know, doubt, uncertainty. What about this? What about that? And it's like you were saying, Dhammadasa, you know, there are folks who have the instructions of like Buddha, and they sit down and they just practice that, you know, being content and satisfied with just that. So it's pretty simple. You know, very direct.
Totally.
I got a question if y'all don't mind.
Shoot, man.
So I was just wondering about, I've been on a train today for like 7 hours, and this boredom keeps coming up again and again on these long rides. And yeah, I've just been wondering like how you deal with that, or if this is like a unwholesome thing to look at, or yeah, just what you think about it.
I had an old teacher who would tell me, Learn to fall in love with being bored. Learn to fall in love with boredom. And from the Theravada perspective, you might want to like, the wording is like, oh, don't fall in love, it's too much or whatever. But you get the point. You know what I mean? It's like, learn to be at peace with it. Because boredom only comes when you go into dukkha land. But when you realize everything's okay as it is right here and now, boredom isn't even a factor. There's neither boredom nor not boredom. It's just irrelevant, you know. Anybody else want to answer that? Hi, Aurelian. I think I said it right. Yeah.
Getting better every time.
Sweet, dude.
Oh, dude.
Anybody have any tips on how to deal with boredom?
Yeah, I
For
got
me,
it.
the thing that's been helpful was, sorry. You
No,
wanna-
no, go ahead.
Okay. For me, the thing that's been helpful is to just recognize it as a form of anxiety and then treat it more like anxiety, because it is like basically something other than what's happening should be happening, or I want something that isn't basic dukkha, and just looking at it more from that perspective. Because boredom to me before was just like something that I considered like, oh, well, the circumstances are producing boredom. But it's again the attitude. That's what I have. Thank you.
Yeah, the attitude that it's not some external thing and that we need to satiate it by going to some like external means, but rather it's like an internal attitude. And so, yeah, what I find to be very helpful here in terms of boredom is also, in a way, playing with it or playing with being aware of it. So, you know, it's kind of like playing whack-a-mole with boredom, right? So if boredom does arise, right, we become aware of it. We say, oh, there's boredom, right? And you're playing the boredom game. And so can you really be bored if you're playing the boredom game? Because if you're not aware of it, then like, okay, you're you're not playing the game. But if you're aware of it, you become aware of it, you're like, oh, I see boredom. Well, then it goes away for a bit, comes back up. So it's just, you become aware of it. If it does come up, okay, not a big problem. And also really, yeah, coming back to being content and satisfied with what is, here and now. Like, just this is enough, right? Just this breath right now is enough. Just relaxing into it, So I think, yeah, talking about boredom and how it relates to anxiety and restlessness, and these are all kind of the same hindrance, right? Is that kind of coming down and like being like, hey, we can relax too, and we can just enjoy stilling, right? So we can enjoy breathing, coming back to that. So that's nice as well. But also just being like, hey, you know what? I can work and I can play with becoming aware of this hindrance when it comes up, and then also abandoning it. So we can give up boredom, right? So rather than being a victim of boredom, being like, yeah, we can be aware of it and develop that skill of sati. So it's a wholesome skill. Congratulate yourself when you see boredom. Like, hey, congratulations, we saw it, we won the game, right? And then abandon it, and then if it comes back up again, cool, you know what to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to add, so it's actually quite important to embrace boredom sometimes, because neurologically, I watched a video that spoke about a study that said some of your best ideas, some of your most creative moments come from times of boredom, actually, because obviously your brain is searching for something to stimulate itself, and eventually it will find something that sticks. So yeah, embrace the boredom. Maybe your next $1 million idea will come from it.
Good advice. Yeah, good advice. It doesn't last too. There's nobody that sits around bored for like 24 hours, really. Yeah. Generally speaking. Something happens.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like with the boredom game, it's like when you notice the boredom, it's like something's changed there. And that's the other thing, right? Is noticing the change, like you're talking about, Dhammadasa. It's like things are changing, right? We have this idea when, the mind goes to boredom, oh, nothing's changing, everything's the same. And it's like, no, things are constantly changing. Even the state of, boredom itself, right? And that can change actually rather quickly too, especially as we continue to, develop these skills. So the Noble Eightfold Path.
Yeah. The grass is always greener too. You might find yourself in war one day, and you might long for those days of boredom. You know, find yourself in a sticky situation, swimming with sharks or whatever, and you'll wish you could just sit on a couch eating Cheetos, being bored. Yeah.
I was gonna comment on boredom.
Yeah, go for it.
I think it's nice to think of boredom as like the doorway to the deathless in a way, because things like boredom, anxiety, drowsiness, pretty much all of those hindrances, right? They're like the guards against the Dhamma, right? They're sort of the gatekeepers that keep us turned with our attention towards engagement in sensory stimulation. And so the only pleasure we know is the pleasure of stimulating the senses. And you know, there's positively stimulating sensual experiences, you know, things that we call pleasurable. There's negatively stimulating sensuality, things that we call, you know, unpleasant. And but the Dhamma itself is this sort of unconditioned, causeless pleasure or joy or happiness that is the sort of natural state of the mind when it's desireless, when it's empty. And we don't make contact with that because we have this sort of undercurrent of these different forms of craving, from boredom to anxiety, that guard us from experiencing that. And our conditioning, which is pretty much everything that's happening, right? Everything we do is conditioning, right? We have our personal conditioning from our family, we have our cultural conditioning, we have the conditioning that's just inherent with evolution. And so it's always conditioning that's responding to stimulus. You can, you know, remember that the body is an organism, an environment, and it has its conditioning that's responding to stimulus. It has its personal and cultural familial conditioning. And so this is sort of the constellation of conditions that actually is living this life. And what keeps us from stepping outside of that are things like boredom, right? Things like restlessness, things like anxiety. And what the Four Noble Truths teach us is that this thing that we've held so close to us our entire lives, namely desire or craving, is like a toxic or poisonous close companion that we haven't realized to be what it is our whole lives. Because everything we do in order to get away from the feeling of craving. Craving is an unpleasant feeling that arises in the body in order to push us towards one activity or another, whether it's something as basic as hunger. You know, hunger is an unpleasant feeling and we eat to get rid of the feeling of hunger. Sexual lust, right, is an unpleasant feeling and we seek release in order to get rid of that unpleasant feeling. Boredom is an unpleasant feeling. We seek some form of sensory pleasure to get rid of the feeling of boredom. Yet, because of our ignorance, we want to feel craving, right? So when we're bored and there's no craving, or when we're feeling somewhat peaceful and there's no craving, we try to stimulate craving. So we might be sitting on the couch feeling just fine, and we'll open the computer and look at some pictures of naked girls because we want to make ourselves feel that discomfort and then go and relieve it, because that's the only pleasure we know in life, because we're stuck in ignorance. We only know the pleasure of creating an uncomfortable feeling and then seeking a way to get rid of it. That's the absurdity of sensuality that becomes clear when you see the Four Noble Truths. So the conditioning is always to do something about the way you feel. It's always to try to make yourself feel better than you feel, or to feel good if you're not feeling much at all, or to feel better if you're feeling bad. So the thing to do is to do nothing, right? Because conditioning requires fueling, right? So it's like you have a fire and you have to keep adding fuel to it in order for it to keep burning. And our conditioning is constantly fueling this fire of craving. And so when you encounter boredom, you're sort of getting to like the root of the fire, and you could just kind of sit there and keep your hands warm. Don't add any fuel to it, kind of let it burn out, and then you catch a glimpse of of the Dhamma, of this sort of joy of renunciation, this joy of relief, this joy of desirelessness, depending on how deep it goes. It's a tricky game, but yeah, the best thing to do with feelings like boredom and anxiety is just to, actually, what's his name? I can't remember his name. He comes to the Monday calls. Well, anyway, his name might come back to me. He
Brett?
mentioned, no, not Brett.
Crash? Who's Crash? Is Crash on?
I don't know who Crash is. Is it Jonathan, maybe?
I'm
I
so
think it's
bad with
Jonathan,
names.
perhaps. Anyway, he said something that I thought was really interesting. He said that when he's like in a meditative state and something like sadness comes up, he experiences it like a symphony or something, like something beautiful to observe. And there's sort of a pleasure in, instead of trying to do something about the hindrances when they come up, just sort of like, just almost like bearing witness to them or enjoying them, like you're in a dark audience watching a play production being put on for you. It's not you who's putting on the play. You're not a character in the play. You're in the audience.
Yeah, the play of Leela.
Just kind of watch it happen. And then that's one level of freedom. That's maybe the first level of freedom, when you can kind of just watch it happen.
Yeah, it's like that movie Office Space. It's a good Dhamma movie. You ever see Office Space?
Long time ago.
Yeah, when he gets hypnotized by that dude, and that guy dies of a heart attack, and so he's permanently hypnotized. Nothing bothers him. He just, like, his bosses like are yelling at him. He's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, everything starts going great for him.
Yeah.
And then slowly his mind comes back, and greed comes back, and then he's back in the dukkha again.
Oh, interesting. I don't remember it
Oh,
that well. I gotta watch it again.
great movie.
The Buddha said that ignorance has a nutriment. That nutriment is the 5 hindrances. I don't want to watch them. I want to throw them out every time I see them. I want to be done with them as soon as they come up. I want to replace them with wholesome thoughts so that I can watch the fire die down nice and easy. I want to make even watching myself die easy. I'm going to toss the fucking hindrances out every time, because those are the nutriment for ignorance. Those are the things that stop us from seeing clearly. A hindered mind can't see clearly. By definition, it's hindered. It's in hindrances. So everything's okay. Everything's all right. Everything's good enough, just like it is.
Mm-hmm. We have to be careful we don't get out of balance, though, because we might find ourselves going too much to war, practicing too much to the point where it causes, like, oh, there's a thing, I gotta get it, I gotta get this thought, I can't have any dukkha, and then we drive ourselves crazy, Instead of like, oh, I had some dukkha, oh, okay, oh well, so what? I like dukkha. You know what I mean? Bring it on.
Yeah.
There's also another word, not to shift gears too much, but there's another word that comes up with it, which for me is impatience. I remember Ajahn Sumedho telling the story how Ajahn Chah told him, well, you really got to work on your patience. And when he said that, it was like, oh, I'm impatient. Yeah, it's an aspect of boredom. For example, I listen when somebody speaks slowly on YouTube. I go up to 2 times or whatever and listen to it, because I want to hear what they have to say.
I'm here for the insight, man.
Yeah, not
Bring
the
it on.
pauses, not the silence.
Yeah, what Alex said reminds me of what Buddhadasa Bhikkhu said. He's like, a lot of people, they want to go to war, with the hindrances. They want to go to war with Mara. They want to go to war with the tiger in the cage, like their mind is a tiger in the cage. But they said, instead of trying to spear the tiger and stab it with a sword in the cage and go into war, just let it starve to death. Let it be.
Yeah.
Go walk away. Go do something else. Say, hi, tiger. Bye, tiger. It's not my problem. Go walk away.
Absolutely. I've been to multiple wars. I'm done with them.
Good.
They're no fun. There's nothing good about them. Nothing nice comes out of war. Nothing nice comes out of hatred. Nothing nice comes out of impatience.
Yeah, I heard somebody describe war one time as long bouts of boredom with some rare instances of like chaos.
That sounds about right.
I think, yeah, when it comes to the hindrances, it's not, about going to war. It's more like, joyfully taking out the trash. If the trash does
Yes.
arise, I
Every
think
time
that's,
it comes up, you clean it
Yeah.
out.
yeah. And we have the intention, right, of, hey, don't go there. We see there's cow pies, right? As you were talking about on last Saturday, right? Dasa talking about it like a crap, right? And you don't step in the crap. So we keep an eye out for the crap. But if it does happen, if we do step in it, what are we going to do, right? We can, dust ourselves off and like continue mindfully, or we can have our mind clouded. Oh, I hate that hindrance. This hindrances are so bad and I hate them. It's like, and then your mind's clouded, and then you go and step in even more, right? And so it's just this cycle. So it's like, if it does happen, then it's like, okay, we can come back to kindness and gentleness, and for ourselves, for the situation at hand, right? And change from the unwholesome to the wholesome, right? And that can be done, right? But then there's doubt. Oh, I can't interfere with this. I can't do this. I have to leave everything as is, right? If that's a rule, then it's like, oh, we can throw that out too. Throw out all the rules. Just see like what is beneficial in this moment, right? And then apply the mind accordingly to abandon, the hindrances. We see it's junk, it's garbage, it's not worth it. But we don't need to go to war with it, because that's more hindrance.
Yeah, that's why the dog shit analogy, I think I have to give credit to Dhammarato. That's the first time I heard it, but
Yeah.
it's such a good analogy because you don't need that much effort, like we always say, to walk around the dog shit or the goose shit. You don't need too much effort. Just enough effort to avoid it. Do you see it and you remember to step to the left or step to the right? And even for people, for like, quote, lay people or the mundane people who've never even heard of the Dhamma, there's not much. I would imagine there's not much dissatisfaction for the, quote, generally speaking, normal people on a daily basis. It seems like there's a lot, because if you're so clueless when you're walking around in the park and you're stepping in dog shit twice a week, you think it's raining dog shit. I can't get away from dog shit. But for most people, it's like that real dissatisfaction. It comes maybe once, twice a day, a week, whatever, and that's really not much. So the Buddha's like dukkha, dukkha, nirodha, and the wonderful thing is we practice. When it comes, we remember to identify it and walk around it. And it's a very, I think when we talk about Dhamma practice, especially for beginners, they have this idea of so much ideas of enlightenment and all these magical shit and all this superstition. And you got a whole wall of books called the Pali Canon. And you got a whole wall of professors who studied it their whole life. It seems like such a task to, but really it's like, once in a while, dissatisfaction arises throughout our day or week, even for some people.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is walk around it when it comes. No big deal. And it's,
It reminds
thank
me a lot
God it's
of.
not a big deal.
It
Go ahead,
reminds
buddy.
me a lot of. I think Eckhart Tolle, like for him, like he describes these like unwholesome thoughts with like little monsters, if I remember correctly. And I feel like for a lot of people, it's just like it's this little monster, and they only see the shadow, which is really big. And they all like they think they can continuously think that it's like such a big problem, and they're so messed up, but they don't like look correctly and see that it's just a little monster, and they just need the right attitude to fix it. Can be so easy.
Yeah.
That's
I remember
wonderful.
Jiddu Krishnamurti said something similar. He said, we're scared, we're afraid that there's this big monster around the corner, and we turn the corner and it's just a little puppy dog. Like,
Yeah.
dealing with our dukkha wasn't that big of a deal in the first place.
Yeah, I felt like this when I had the first call with Dhammarato, and like in the end, there was nothing much to say, and I was like my mind kept trying to formulate questions, but it was just so simple, and it was so
That's why we
overwhelming
always
for me that
repeat
it was so
ourselves. And we'll repeat ourselves in the Sangha till the end of time. Because there's not much to say, really. So we come up with clever, interesting ways to say different things, artistic ways to say the same thing over and over. And it's great because it helps to remind us. That's the practice itself. So I think for a lot of beginners, they come and they're trying to solve the puzzle box. But for a lot of us who've been doing it a while, I love hearing each one of you guys talk about it. I love hearing even beginners talk about it and ask questions and stuff. I never get bored of it, just because it's like it's such a great thing to be reminded. Like, wow, you are enlightened. You are cool. You have a cool mind. Everything's no problem. It's such a beautiful thing. I always think of Thich Nhat Hanh, how he would even like grab something on the table and he would do it so like mindfully, so to speak. And he was aware of everything. And it's not like he's doing that because he wants attention on this great Zen master. No, it's like he really just seemed to enjoy living, didn't he? You know, he's just like you. Even watching his YouTube videos, he's just such peace in everything he did. I mean, what a great master he was. And we're all capable of it. You know, we don't have to have his same style and be like him and act like him, but inside of us, it's like, that's a good example. It's like this old Zen master is very peaceful, very calm, doesn't react to anything. Nothing's a big deal. You know, we remain calm in all situations, relaxing here and now. So anybody else got anything to say?
I have the one idea related to the earlier about the cleansing, yeah, like cleaning out. And for me, it often takes a long time before I start cleaning my apartment. And I think that this came up in some other Dhamma call before, and I think you were on it. But it's like, what I've realized is like, well, if I'm not cleaning it, then it's not bothering me. And when it bothers me, then I do clean it. And so it's simply a matter of that for me.
Yeah, totally. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about or before we go?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Jonas. Are you still there, Jonas? Looks like he disappeared.
No,
Hey.
I'm here.
Oh,
I hear
cool.
you. Hi.
How do you normally handle boredom? And do you think you've changed your perspective on it after this?
Well, I think it does not come up that often for me in like my normal environment. And just when I like in these situations, like today where I was like 7 hours on the train, it's like really intense because I normally don't feel it that much. And I would say, how do I handle it normally? Good question, because I think I don't have it that much. Probably I try to distract myself from time to time. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I might have to think about this more often.
Yeah. I would say the Dhamma aspect of it is great, but also just like the mundane things, like do what you love and do more things, do more skillful things, like experiment, try journaling, try drawing, find some new app to
Yeah.
create something new, like, and then bring the Dhamma into that doing as well, with the accept, maybe accept it first, and then, you know, push yourself.
So one thing that helped me a little bit, because like a couple of days ago, I also asked the same question to Dhammarato. I think the video just came up today or yesterday. Maybe somebody has seen it. And he kind of told me, well, if your mind is wondering if you're bored, then just shortly watch a movie or whatever, and then come back to, I don't know, listening to a Dharma talk or thinking about the Dharma, contemplating the Dharma. And I think this helped me a lot in kind of taking the judgment out of being bored a little bit. And also, and that's what I realized that I was judging it or myself a lot for being bored. And also, I think you don't have to meditate all the time. You can also play, or I don't know, watch a movie, but be present with it. Just enjoy watching a movie for, I don't know, half an hour, and then, I don't know, do something else. Yeah.
I had a cool experience watching a movie the other day because I wasn't enjoying it very much. And so I thought, well, it's boring, but I could do some anapanasati. And so I was doing it while watching the movie, and I started enjoying the movie. It was amazing.
That's wonderful.
Amazing.
Yeah, you remembered to look and you changed it. That's the whole Noble Eightfold Path. You found the doorway in your boring movie. That everything's okay and you start enjoying it. Yeah. That is meditation, you know. Yeah, there's a classical meditation of sitting and walking and all this stuff, but yeah, the remembering, look, and changing, that is the sati that we practice, you know. That is something that we can do whenever dissatisfaction arises, you know. And like I said, dissatisfaction is not always arising. A lot of us, you know, have perfectly fine days just doing whatever we're doing. And it seems like, oh, dissatisfaction's always haunting me when we're dissatisfied. But really, I think we'd be surprised if we look at it with clear eyes how rare it actually is. Which, thank God for that. Thank Buddha for that. Thank Hanuman. Well, dudes, I think I'm going to wrap it up unless anybody has anything dire they want to talk about.
Well, I'm so thankful again and again every week for these talks, and just, yeah, kind of talking about stuff, reminding myself, and hopefully also you reminding yourself the Dhamma. So thanks a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's no Sangha without all of us, all you guys. We're all the same. We're all enlightened Buddhas. Remember that. Yeah. Much peace and love, dudes. Thank you for
Thanks,
everything.
everybody. Much love, everybody. See y'all soon.
Thank you, Dhammadas. You guys have a good one.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Peace.